In their quest to involve many Gambian women in technology, mathematics, and engineering fields, a well-determined Gambian women came together to form an association called WiSTEM, which is an acronym that stands for Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. Today, Saturday, 11th March, is another historic day as we are about to witness the launch of this prestigious association called the WiSTEM. Many important personalities are gathered here this morning inside of the Kairaba Jawara Conference Center to witness this important occasion. Amongst them is the Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Professor Per Gomez, and Professor Tumani Kora of the Medical Research Council. Please stay connected as the same translation will follow in the local language. This is Fine TV Gambia, your only viewpoint.
Assalamu alaikum barin jibir lal ani lamilan tallan fan TV gamme ayo alle viewpoint bimbala sadawra kairaba conference center ka fodo libije ka famila wisdom wala nati kila ka funyu kulli tol fan TV nata ka etandal la mimbe wikerin jam mokuma balle biyan mil yalon ko nay fan nata nyim programme witness min ka munta professor Per Gomez and Professor Tumani Kora and Mokuma Balmi Yalon Fana Basiri Jai Naran program Yunto. Mbaflale Alea Jibe and Aleta Tankalame program Jamal Benyat Mi Yalon Kumbait Abate and Dalmi Baby Kirinja and San Kalakulo Blending to Lamfan TV Gambia your olive viewpoint Alabaraka.
We started by meeting the institutions we feel they should be involved, specifically government. We had courtesy call to different institutions, and amongst them was the Ministry of Higher Education. The Ministry of Higher Education, ARIF, QTV, AFSL, and the list goes on. But after speaking to all these people, we realized that this is something that is needed in this country. We knew that there are girls within our midst who can study and practice STEM, but they are afraid. We knew they can do it, but they are afraid or they have not seen the people who are engaged in these fields. So that was how we started initially. We had girls in STEM clubs in 2 universities. We plan on having girls in STEM club in throughout the Gambia. Fortunately, we were able to register 2, that is USET and NOSFAT. Recently, 2 of our members were awarded with the She Award Gambia. Most of us have participated, but when I realized that most of the girls I was nominated also, I realized that most of the girls I participated with were my juniors, and they are members of WiSTEM. I decided to withdraw, to give them the opportunity to go on. And luckily for us, Fatmata Jami won the STEM award. It never stopped at that. We have Dr. Awaja, the Health Practitioner of the Year. Yesterday at the Kedjula Award, one of our members won, Ramatullah. We have also participated in health screening. Amongst them was the cervical cancer one, which was conducted at Bundung Hospital. One of our members, who is heading that hospital, conducted this with another institution in the Gambia. And they were able to screen hundreds of people. We also conduct monthly webinars. We started with sustainable energy, cervical cancer. These were topics that were chosen by the members, and at each point, we realized the importance it has on our lives. Apart from the activities we are engaged in, we would like to engage government and the private sector because we want to make this a reality. We want to see to it that in the next 20 years, we will have half of the girls or women in STEM contributing towards the development of Gambia. As I always say, it is a collective responsibility. If I have a role to play as a Gambian, you also have a role to play as a Gambian. And looking at the population, we have 52% of women. If 52% of women are not part of STEM, how do we intend to develop Gambia? That's a question we should all ask ourselves. How do we want to engage government? Since we have members outside the country and they are Gambians, mostly they are the ones conducting these webinars. But having access to those girls, to correct internet access and a platform where they can conduct these webinars has been a struggle for all of us. We ended up going to companies like Gamcell to have access to this internet. We would like to have our own center where students can go in and conduct their webinars or conduct their research. As research also, I just skipped that point. It's one of the areas we will be looking into. Because we have so many things that if we conduct research on those things, we can contribute immensely to the development of Gambia. So we would like government to open centers for us throughout the Gambia in each region where girls can go into and conduct their research and do their studies and engage in STEM. We don't want the girls to spend most of their time on TikTok, one of the apps I hate most. We want them to spend that energy on something that will develop them and can develop the Gambia. As I said earlier, it's our responsibility as Gambians. We cannot rely on our male counterparts. They are doing their part. We also have a role to play. We are here to complement each other. We are not competing with anybody. Women in STEM, to make this clear to the media, we are not competing, we are complementing. We want to engage in networking events too. In what we need in those networking events is to engage, to bring the students and the professionals together. And that what we want is to have that relationship or an interaction where students will have the opportunity to meet the professionals and ask them questions that they want to ask. And it will make them easy. It will make it easy for them to choose their career paths. We also want to engage government in that. And how do we intend to go about that? Is to have centers throughout the Gambia, specifically for STEM, for girls in STEM. It has been a difficult moment since we started. It has been very tough when you have to be a mother, a wife, a staff of Gramcell, and a member of WiSTEM. But I could not have gone through all this without the participation of the executive. I would like to singularly thank Fatmata, Numa, Hadijatu, Adama, Yafatu, and all the girls in the team. Please allow me to introduce the members of WiSTEM, the executive members of WiSTEM. Can you join me on stage, please? Hadijatu is an electrical engineer at NAWEC. Nima, an electrical engineer at NAWEC. Yafatu, a medical doctor at Demban. Sorry about that. And Dado is heading the Bundum Hospital. Adama is a mechanical engineer at Gamsar. And Lady Chile Jawara or Sagan is working for MRC Gambia as a biologist. I could not have, sorry. Yeah, we have other members who are outside the country, and they have been contributing immensely. We have been having midnight meetings just to make sure that everything works. I could not have done it alone. They participated immensely. And I would really want you to give them a round of applause for their effort. Thank you. I would like to thank everybody for coming and have an enjoyable event. Thank you. Thank you very much once again, our able founder and president, WiSTEM. Before we move to the next speaker, we would like to put in something. It's also a speech, but this time a motivational one, an inspiring one, because I can see these bright faces, especially the young ones, the students. We all want to always hear some motivation, some encouragement. We also want to know, I know most of you here are eager or are asking themselves in their heads, how does these people make it to this stage, right? So we will want to invite someone to share her journey with us, the ups and downs, and then the straights and the bends. On this note, I would like to invite Mrs. Biran Donde Gilen, President, Information and Technology Association, the Gambia. Please let's welcome.
Thank you. Don't worry, I'll keep it very short and sweet. Good morning, everyone. I wasn't actually supposed to speak first. You guys are putting me on the spot. My name is Biran Dondekelen, and I'm the president of the IT Association of the Gambia. I also run a tech hub and an incubator, supporting businesses and entrepreneurs and startups in the ecosystem. So we support different businesses across the board in agribusiness, in technology, in fashion. As long as you're an entrepreneur or a young person that has an idea and wants to run a business, we support you in different ways. We do different kinds of trainings, we mentor, and we also help you develop and prepare a product that's fit for market. So that aside, I think I wear many hats in the industry. When you see me at different events, I wear different hats. So I mentor girls in technology, and that's something that's been a passion of mine. And I have to say, I have a few mentors of mine that are sitting here that I'd like to recognize, and that's Ms. Aisa Bija and Ms. Anna Sekasen, who have been, I would say, the first women in tech people in Gambia that we've been able to look up to. And they've done an amazing job. And I have to say, that's part of the reason why I am here today and doing what I do and also giving back. I think what we need to realize before I maybe give a bit of background about myself is really the importance of giving back and the importance of making time for our fellow young women. Because it's not it's not the degrees that you collect that makes you successful. It's the lives that you impact, in my opinion, that really does make you successful as a human being. Not necessarily even a woman, but women in general, we have a very giving nature. That's the way Allah created us. And I think it's important that we leverage on that, especially us women in STEM. We keep saying there are not enough women in technology, there are not enough women in science, But I think it's also up to us to drive that. And I have to recognize another amazing woman that's here today, Dr. Georgia, who's just been a shining star throughout this past few years. I always tell her that we're stealing her from science and bringing her into tech. But she keeps insisting she's a scientist, so we'll see. Give me a few more years with her. But to give you a bit of background, I studied computer networks. I don't work in the field that I studied. I say that because my field is very technical. I should have been doing what I thought and Anna are doing now, but I ran away. I realized very early on in my career that I was very good with dealing with people. I was very good with translating technology to common sense. So I decided to go into the field of maybe project management, a little bit of administration. So I was the in-between between the really, really technical, geeky people and the people who had no clue what a router was and needed explanation. So I realized my strength was talking. I love to talk. So please stop me before I go overboard. So I realized that my strength was talking to people and making sense of technology. So my background in technology helped me to be that translator between the technical people and the people that required a service that they weren't really sure what it was that they needed. So it took me 8 years to actually figure out what I was good at. In the meantime, I studied computer science and I studied computer networks as my master's. But I realized that that wasn't really my passion. Initially, my parents wanted me to study medicine. Then they wanted me to be a lawyer because I talk a lot. So then I came into computer science by default because I felt it was challenging. Um, Initially, my first year in university, started studying computer science. There were a lot of women in my class, and we graduated. There was still a significant number of women in my bachelor's class, but in my master's class, it was computer networks. It was tough. We had about 10 women, but we ended up with about 3 at the end. Everybody ran away to computer networks management because it was a bit easier. But I think what I learned from that is, in terms of perseverance, I didn't have a lot of background knowledge in the networking aspect because when you do a first degree, it's very generic. You don't really specialize that much. It's not focused enough. So when you go into something as technical as computer networks, you're bound to run away because it's very, very technical. But one of the key advices that I always give is always follow your passion, whatever it is. Even though it wasn't my passion at the time, but it was something I wanted to achieve and I was determined to do it. And at the time when I was doing my master's, I was pregnant with my second child, I believe. Yes, I was pregnant with my second child. So when I was writing my thesis, it was in between watery, vomiting, and all of that morning sickness and stuff. But I pulled through, and I think part of that energy and focus and drive that I had was stories that I heard from people like Anna Seka. When she would share some of the stories she had when she was working, she was heavily pregnant and she was cabling and she was crimping and she was doing all these things that really, as one of the speakers said earlier, that their mother would say, on the video, that their mother would say, you're not supposed to be doing that. That's a man's job. She was the only woman in the room. And unfortunately for me, I have a man's name. So whenever I show up, I go to an interview, I show up, they see Biran, everybody thinks it's a man. And then we see the credentials, everybody thinks it's a man. And then when I show up in my hijab, everybody turns around and says, Mr., Miss, Mrs., and everyone looks confused. So I always use that as a strength of mine. When I show up, I keep quiet, I sit in the corner, and then I'm usually always the last person at interviews, and they always get confused because there's a lady in the room and they're looking at a man's name. But fast forward my story, I graduate, and then I think this is a very interesting part that I want to share with you before I wrap up. So when I graduated, my father told me, you need to come home. I said, no, I'm not coming home. I'm going to stay and I'm going to work in my field. I was in the UK. And he said to me, you're not going to be able to get a job in your field because you're a new graduate and you don't have any work experience. I said, no, I'm going to stay. He said, okay, we'll have a deal. You stay for a year. This was in 2001. You stay for a year. If you don't have a job in your field, you come home. I said, that's fine. I know I'm going to get a job in 12 months. That's a long time. So I started at Burger King, then moved on to McDonald's, then moved on to some perfume shop, then moved on to some beauty store. I went through a string of jobs, none of which was in my field. And at the end of the year, I couldn't find a job in my field in London. And so he said, it's time to come home. I thought my dad was joking. He showed up with a ticket, packed my bags, and brought me home. Literally, brought me home. So I came home in 2002 April, and I still reeling from not being able to do what I wanted to do, angry at everybody, stay in my room, all of that stuff. So then my dad took me to Mohammed Jah. My dad took me to Mohammed Jah and introduced me to Mohammed Jah and said, this is my daughter. You know how parents are, oh, this is my daughter. She just graduated from university and has this degree. Showing me off and then says, so I'm looking for a job for her. I wasn't looking for a job. I was depressed that I was in home. So then Mohammed was like, okay, we'll keep an eye out. And I always say our parents are full of wisdom. I was literally dragged home. 10 days after I was dragged home, I got a job that I would never have dreamed of getting, even if I was in the UK. That was paying me what I would never have thought I would get paid, even if I was in the UK. And I think we always underestimate the wisdom of our parents. So that is one advice that I would like to give. The support of your parents is very important in what you do, and also listening to them at the correct time when they give that advice is also very, very important. If I hadn't come home, that wouldn't have paid my way to where I am today. Because the job I got was a project manager's job. I was 22 years old, no experience. And I got a job as a project manager. No clue what I was doing. So that I don't call that luck. I don't call that coincidence. It's just part of my path to growing to be who I am today. And that job really molded me into what I am today. I was at the immigration department as a civilian for 5 years, working with the public sector, with zero public sector experience. But I had a guidance of a husband who's been in public sector for over 15 years and a father who's now been in public sector for over 45 years. And that's what made me who I am today. That job of 5 years is what molded me, because it's what prepared me. It's what made me to be the leader I am today, because I had to deal with permanent secretaries and ministers and presidents, and I was 22 years old with zero background and zero work experience. So basically what I'm trying to say is, part of what makes you is your journey. That journey is very important. Every single step of the way is equally important. You need to appreciate it. But make the right decisions as you go. Seek advice. Get mentors. I cannot say that enough. Your father can be your mentor. Your sister can be your mentor. Mentor doesn't have to even be somebody that has to be in the same professional field as you. It's just somebody that has the skills, the leadership to be able to guide you through your key decisions in life. We have to have mentors in life. It's extremely important. That's part of the reason I am where I am today. The mentors I had that guided me along the way. The second thing I wanted to leave you with is, I don't know why my phone keeps on. The second thing I wanted to leave you with is, Goma Sabop. Believe in yourself. We all have something called this gut feeling that always tells us what we're feeling. Always follow it, and you'll be guided accordingly. And the third thing I wanted to share with you is, academics is not always the way to go. And I want to make this very, very, very clear and part with this. Not everyone is supposed to sit in a university. Not everyone is supposed to go home with a bachelor's degree. Some people are very successful today, and they have gone through life building up their skill set, going through professional certification, and building their knowledge and skills as they go. So just because you cannot sit through a degree of 3 years, 4 years, doesn't mean you're not good enough. Explore the professional path. The same way you can be an accountant getting a degree in accounting, the same way you can be an accountant having an ACCA with a professional certification. The same way you can be a computer scientist with an academic degree is the same way you can be a CCNA going through the Cisco route, or choosing to be a Microsoft certified professional. These are all paths that we need to consider. If we're talking about STEM, we're talking about skill sets, technical skill sets. And you have the academic path, you have the professional path. Let's not always focus on the academic. Let's also explore the professional. because it's equally important and equally strengthening in terms of our career path. Thank you for indulging me in this long session. Thank you for giving me the platform to share, and I hope I was able to leave something with you to share on your way home.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gillian. I'm motivated. Thank you. Please, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Damfa from NAWEC. He is the Human Resource Manager NAWEC, but today he is here for the NAWEC Gender Committee. Interestingly, he's been very, 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 very helpful. Please, Mr. Damfa, can we have you on stage, please? Thank you very much. We will now like to proceed. So next on our agenda now, we have another speaker. Hey, this is interesting. I'm so happy. He is the Emeritus Director of Medical Research Council Unit, the Gambia, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He is the founder and president of Africa Research Excellence Fund, established 6 years ago. Africa Research Excellence Fund focuses on talented emerging health researchers in the continent, providing them with stepping stones to a successful research career in Africa for Africa. Research that will impact on policies to improve health and save lives in Africa and the world. Interestingly, we asked for your bio. Before I mention his name, we asked for his bio and he what you do. Thank you for coming, Prof.
Honorable Minister, and all the ladies dressed in white called Ashobi, distinguished members of the High Table, young ladies, I am honored, I'm privileged, and I'm happy to be here with you. I will start off with a message for the male folks. Each and every one of the male who's been to school has been fortunate to go to a university, has been fortunate to do postgraduate studies, have been in the same class as ladies. And we should be the first to confess that the ladies were at worst as good as us, but at best better than us. And we must therefore cherish our women folk all our lives. The problem with development hangs heavily on the shoulders of us men. We tend to forget that the closest bond we have, the bond that we knew first of all, the people who nurtured us are women. And yet we forget and disrespect them as we go on. A woman has the same right as a man. A woman has the same right and privilege to education as a man. A woman has the same right and privilege to social justice. Why is this not happening? Those of you who are religious would join me in saying that the first people on earth were a one-to-one ratio, one male, one female. If one was destined to be more important, then there would have been 2 males to 1 female or 3 males to 1 female. There was equity from that very start, and that equity must be maintained throughout. But is this so? That equity is not always maintained. Yet there are rules, laws, and regulations which gives a woman the fundamental human rights, the same as men. But let's look at statistics to see whether this holds true or not. But before I say that, in 1977, the Gambia government ratified the international laws of human rights and gave and acknowledged the fact that women are the same pedestal as men are. So women should enjoy the same social rights. And all this means is that women have the same legal status and the same protection and the same economic boundaries as men are. But let's look at statistics. And sadly, we see a totally different picture. Globally, women have less access to education. About 25% of all girls or women between the age of 15 to 24 never complete school. At the same time, we are aware that 67% of illiterates in the world are women. This explains the big problems we face today in our world. In 2023, only 17 out of 151 presidents and prime ministers were women. A decade ago, this was worse. It was 5% to 7% of presidents that were women. The problems with this world, I have said, therefore, were all the faults of men who have been presidents of so many countries. It is high time that we change. We need a paradigm shift to bring in women to the forefront, who, with their enthusiasm, their love for humanity, their love for the populations, would change this world to a better place. I must also say here that women must strive to become leaders. If you do not become a leader, you do not sit at the table where the decisions are made. And men are selfish. I am one. We will take a bigger portion of the cake and leave a little one for the children and even smaller one for the women. We must change these things. Let us look at an area that I'm more comfortable with, health. What have all these men done for health in the world? Let us focus on our continent. Africa represents 17% of the global population, yet we are host to 25% of the global burden of disease. I wonder why we die more often than many other people do. And all this is led by a lack of the appropriate numbers of women to help us fight these global pandemics. And when you look at great researchers, I've always strived to be one. There was a recent publication which ranked the best scientists in the world. And this was based on what we call the citation index. That is how many people refer to your publications and make use of it, how it has impacted on public health, on lives, etc., on engineering, on STEMs, and every other science that you can think of. And the world identified 645 such great scientists. Do you know how many of these scientists were from Africa? Of the 645 scientists, only 15 were from our beloved continent. 10 of these 15 were from South Africa. And of the remaining 5, 3 from Egypt, 1 from Kenya, and 1 from a country I admire, Nigeria. We need more women in science. We need more women in technology, and that's why I'm exceptionally proud of the achievements that Cordu and our team have done to ensure that they engage with the younger generation to change this. It was many years ago that I was in the sixth form in Gambia High School, and there were 7 of us, only 7 in the science class, doing science A levels, and only 1 woman was amongst us. She was equally as good as we were. Today, things have changed. You are doing exceptionally well as women, and in some circumstances, better than the men are doing. Men must acknowledge we cannot do it alone. I've always said to people, if you have two hands and you go into a kitchen and you decide to use one of your hands and leave the other hand spare, you spend a long time in that kitchen. And the Wallahs will say, Chin Bobo do saf. So why do we neglect 52% of the population? Why? It is high time that we accepted this. You beautiful ladies have taken the first step to something that you could never imagine. You would grow the young ones, and they will change the face of STEM in Gambia and in Africa. This is what the Gambia is crying out for. People tend to want to take what I would describe as easier course, the arts, the commercial subjects. But all of them depend on technology. A great accountant depends on technology to do their work. A lawyer depends on what has been documented and stored on a computer, and their knowledge to access it is important. You, the people in STEM, are the future leaders, the innovators, the people who will change this world. I took a glance at the Chinese leaders, and I was mightily impressed. Do you know what? 80% of those people have PhDs. And guess in what? In STEM. And then you wonder why China is developing so fast. This is the reason behind it. Their leaders are STEM oriented. They are innovators. They're bound to make progress for themselves and the world at large. I want you, as you develop, to be one another's keeper. I want you to see each other as sisters. I want you to find the shoulder of your sister next to you as the place to lean your head and discuss your challenges and share your solutions. Together, you can grow. I want you to be prepared to take risk. Without risk, you don't develop. I want you to empower yourselves. This year, for Women's World Day, it was a year for innovation and thinking. And indeed, without that, the world will remain where it is. There is a message I must give you before I leave. And I see these two messages as key to potential success for this country of ours we call the Gambia. I want you to be different from the main folks in this. I want you to forget about two words Gambians use. The Gambia, no problem. We have challenges, and we think of it as if nothing is happening, no problem. I want you to be different. Say we have challenges, and we're going to find a solution, and we're going to move this country forward. In other words, I want to banish from the tongues of every Gambian, if I was powerful enough to do this, is maslaha. It is the root of all decadence and the root of where we are today. We do not face the facts and tackle the facts. We look at how it might affect the next man next to us. And we are prepared to lose everything just to see the face of that individual. I say to you all, wipe away maslaha from your language. Today, you've taken the first step, but I tell you what, the longest journey starts with the first step. As you go along, you will find obstacles, but these are challenges you should be prepared for. Please don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid. Failure is as much a part of life as success is. And I believe you me, you never enjoy success until you've endured failure. You need to have mentors, as already emphasized. You need somebody who you could always call on to help you develop. But you must also, at this stage, learn to develop mentoring skills. There is no reason why you cannot mentor one another. You must start networking now. Don't just limit yourselves to your school. Link up with other schools. They may have ideas, suggestions that you've never thought of. Try and not limit your networks only to your region. Make it a national-wide networking and try to reach out to people outside of the boundaries of this Gambia. Science, engineering, technology, and mathematics is what every nation needs to develop. So please, work hard. The prize you gain will be yours. The success you'll enjoy will be yours. The pride you'll achieve will be yours. And if you focus all this to national development, you would have contributed even more significantly than any other one has. The future is bright. The future is yours. Let me thank the organizers for inviting me. And let me say, please be determined. Please work hard. Please aim to succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you also for opening your doors for WiSTEM. I think within this short while that we have WiSTEM started, Prof was able to organize a grant writing training for some members of WiSTEM. So thank you very much. Before we move further, I would also want to acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Energy, Mr. Abdoulaye Diop. You are welcome, sir. The next speaker that is coming is an inspiration. And if I mention her name, we will all see what I'm talking about. She is an ICT professional with over 25 years experience working in the area ICTs, specifically networking and internet technology. She obtained a BSc and MSc in network and systems engineering, respectively, from the University of Maryland at College Park, and has vast experience working across many sectors, including government, non-government, and private organizations. As the National Project Professional NPPP, under the UNDP's Internet Initiative for Africa project, she was team leader in setting up and managing the Gambia's first internet gateway in collaboration with Gamtel. I mean, first internet gateway. So this woman brought internet to the Gambia. I think that needs another round of applause. As the deputy head of IT for the Medical Research Council, she was responsible for production, communication, and enforcement of appropriate IT policies and procedures, as well as the planning, procurement, and management of IT infrastructure across entire corporate WAN. Currently, she's working as the Chief Information Technology Officer, CIO, of QCell, the first GSM service provider to offer 3G and 4G LTE services across the Gambia. Of course, if you have your IT officer as someone who brought internet in the Gambia, then we will be waiting for you to be bringing the first internet, the innovations as they happen, right? So we are expecting 5G, and we know QCell will be the first to bring 5G. She also serves as head of roaming and connection of billing. In addition, she doubles as the executive director of the Q Group Foundation, the philanthropic arm through which the Q Group of companies streamline and channel all of their initiatives and interventions towards the Gambian development agenda. We all know about the Q Group Foundation and what they do. In terms of giving back to the community at the local level, she is founding member of ITAG and Internet Society Gambia chapter. She has also served as the founding chairperson of the National Internet Exchange Point, SIXP, a place where operators exchange local internet data for over 6 years. At the regional level, she has worked as an instructor and program committee member of the Africa Network Operators Group, a forum for cooperation and the exchange of technical information between operators of internet-connected networks in Africa. In addition, she has served a 3-year term in the governance committee for Afrinic, the regional body responsible for the managing of IP addresses. Her passion in her work as the executive director of the Q Group Foundation, where they work with development partners to provide support in the areas of education, health, community, and youth development. Who is this? Dr. Aisa Tuja. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Nima. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I didn't know that I can be a doctor within 5 minutes, but I accept it. I think sitting next to Dr. Cora there helped me a lot. Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Research and Technology, Honorable Professor Pierre Gomez, the Honorable Minister of Energy, Mr. Abdou Diop, the President, Africa Research Excellence Fund, Professor Sir Tumani Kora, President of WiSTEM, Gambia, Kodu Jengay, other members of the high table, executive members of WiSTEM, women and girls in STEM here present, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly and respectfully observed. Good morning to you all. I am indeed greatly honored and humbled to be invited here as a guest speaker in the launching of WiSTEM Gambia Association. I am particularly excited to be in this very inspired by the visit that I received from Kodu and other members of her team way back in October, and I was very, very impressed by the clarity of their vision, all in the equality for this year. As of this association, WiSTEM Gambia, inspire and step in the right direction. I don't want to sound old, even though Brian has tried to make me sound old, because I feel very young at heart. And I think I do look good for my age. But about 3 years ago, 3 decades ago, so don't worry about no, it's just a number. I proudly graduated with a degree in engineering from the University of Maryland. And I was one of two women in my class, in my master's degree class. And this was in Washington area in the United States of America. And the two women, they were both not Americans. And this was a master's in systems engineering in 1997. So you can imagine we have come a long way. Women have come a long way from where we were then to where we are now. So I think I have a few words to say about the chosen theme for WiSTEM. I'm going to concentrate on that because I would like to look at the glass as half full and not half empty. So we started at the bottom. We're going up steadily. So let's celebrate ourselves so that we can go further. Indeed, there have been many successes that have been registered in STEM over the past 50 years or so. And we, the women, sitting right here, have been an integral part of the successes, and it needs to be celebrated. We need to celebrate our successes, especially in STEM, individually and collectively. So I would like to follow Biram's footsteps and give a little inspiring talk of where I started and where I am today, how I got to where I am today. I would like to share my story of how I had a dream of becoming an engineer and turn my dream to reality. As a girl child, one of 6 girls, my parents didn't have any boys. My mother was coming from a family of 5, but she was the youngest, and she was the only one fortunate enough to go through formal education. And she was a teacher. And she taught mathematics at the Gambia College. So you can imagine, that's where my love for math started. She believed in discipline and hard work, and needless to say, she trained us as her children to follow those footsteps. So at an early age, she encouraged us to love mathematics. So I enjoyed doing it. She used to give us some maths work to do at a very early age. I enjoyed doing it because it was logical, and it allowed me to explore and expand my creativity. Let me put it that way. And naturally, because I had no fear for it, I excelled in it in school. And that's the way I like to look at it. I don't think I'm smart. It's because it was introduced to me very early when I was very young. So I developed a love for it, and I had no fear for it, and I performed well. So naturally, when you perform well in maths, everybody thinks that you're going to be somebody in a medical doctor, a scientist, but my father used to call me his engineer. So I was very young in primary school, and my father used to always tell me, you'll be my first engineer in the family, you'll be my engineer in the family. So that really stuck. So I think we've heard from Biran, she was explaining how the messages we get from parents, how it helps us to grow. And this is one of the messages that stuck. So I was really, put in this direction from day one. And I got all the encouragement and support needed from my parents. Also, I was a very curious child. For those old enough to remember the rotary phone, I think the young ones here, they don't know what a rotary phone is. But I was very, very curious about the rotary phone. And I remember when the Gamtel team used to come to check our lines when we have a problem. I would just stand by the pole watching them. I was really curious about what they were doing. And that's where my passion for communications engineering started. Fast forward many years, after working hard and pursuing science subjects in high school, I won a scholarship. I didn't win it easily. It was a competitive scholarship. And I had to wait for 1 year after my finishing high school, applied for several scholarships, and finally got a scholarship from the USAID to pursue a degree in engineering. And my mom pursued her education, most of it while she was married. And I realized all the difficulties she went through juggling her family with her education and her work. So I had promised myself that I would try to do most of the major education that I needed before I got married. And that's exactly what I did. So after I finished my master's, I immediately went to do my bachelor's. I applied straight away for my master's, and I did my master's in system engineering after working for only 1 year. During my studies, I kept my eye on the prize, the ultimate goal. I did not let myself be distracted, and that enabled me to graduate at the top of my class at the end of my studies. And this was despite being one of few women. At the bachelor's level, I can say we were about 10%, but there were only 2 out of 40 at the master's level doing systems engineering. For me, coming back home to contribute was the only option, because I don't know if some of you know about the Gambia list that was started way back when, it was all text chatting. It was basically a place where few of us, the techies, used to communicate in those days, and the lists are still archived. So we had some very honest discussions there about what we need to do to make sure that our countries are where the other countries are right now. And I used to be an advocate of what we call the back to home movement. So coming back home was never an option for me, because I used to advocate for it, so I had to practice what I preached. So I came right back home. But when I came home, I got a job at Gantel. They employ you as a trainee engineer. That's what you called. And I was very shy. And I think, despite studying in the US, I had very low self-confidence, because, like you say, most of the things you study, especially at the first degree, is not what you're going to feel in the industry. So when I came and I was asked a few things that I didn't know, I started panicking. And I was like, oh, after all these years of hard work, I don't know anything, you know? So my self-confidence was a bit low. But fortunately, I had a very good boss. And he was actually the nerd of Gamtel. For those of you from Gamtel, I don't know, Kodu was not there at the time. They were young. I think when I graduated my master's is when she finished high school, based from what she said. But Oli is here. I think I remember seeing Oli. Yes. Oli is right back there. And she was one of the few female technicians that I found working at Gamtel. In the early days, Gamtel had some few technicians working there, but they started working at Gamtel and were trained from high school. So, and then they had this wonderful program that after working for maybe 10 years or so, you would be sent to do your bachelor's. And I think that is more, when you go to do your bachelor's at that age, and you know what the industry requires, you gain more from it. So we have people like Oli here. So even though I'm one of the pioneers, but they've been there before me. Maybe I came in at a different level, but they've been there. So like I said, I had a good boss. And his name was Tankum Sawa. We lost him to the UN system after a few years, but he was very instrumental in building my confidence. So it goes back to what we said here, that having that mentor, somebody who always tells you, you can do it, keep pushing, is very important. I had a good boss, but most importantly, I also had a great cheerleader at home, my husband. He was a big risk taker, and he still is, and always pushed me to the edge and cheered me on when I thought I could not do it. So I worked at Gamtel for barely a year, 1998, and then we saw an advertisement in the newspaper for this UNDP NPPP professional personnel who would be responsible for helping Gamtel install the internet gateway. It's just one person, so you'll be working for UNDP, but you'll be attached at Gamtel. So he saw it. I didn't even see it, and he came and said, "You should apply." I read through the requirements, and he said, 10 years experience in this, 5 years in that. And I said, I'm not going to apply because I am not qualified. You know, women, we just like to work in systems. I'm not qualified. I'm not going to apply because it says you need this, so I will not apply. But he forced me to apply. He said, you have to apply because there is nobody with these qualifications in Gambia. And UN system, normally, when they put out an advertisement, they normally put here, women are encouraged to apply. So I applied, and I think only two people applied for the job. The other was a guy who had a project management experience but zero technology, and I was given the job. So, and that is what I believe is the beginning of my career in computer networking and one of the major successes I have registered in STEM. It was the beginning that gave me the courage to move out of my comfort zone and explore the world in other sectors. So when that project ended, I was confident enough to, when I saw the deputy managing director of IT, not deputy manager, deputy IT manager at MRC, I applied, and Dr. Kora interviewed me, and I was successful, so I joined MRC. And from then, I joined the private sector. So getting that courage, believing in yourself, believing that you can do it, you need somebody to push you to that. And so once you get pushed, then you have the confidence to take on other bigger and better things. The journey, like any other, has not been without challenges. But the challenges are usual. The persistent stereotypes that we women face about our abilities. Because even when I was younger, when I used to say that I want to be an engineer, I want to be a telecoms engineer, I used to say, and they'll say, how are you going to climb poles? How are you going to cable? How are you going to do this? Women are not supposed to do this. So those are the usual stereotypes. We are all used to that now. And I think the young girls should not, they don't think about that now these days. So that forced me to work twice as hard as the male peers to achieve what I wanted. The second challenge was navigating family life. I think I mentioned that I tried to make sure that my long-term studies were all done before I got married. But, there are other challenges as you become a wife, a mother. Juggling that with your career is very challenging. So you have to persevere. And also lack of role models in the workplace, especially in leadership positions. Dr. Kora has given us a breakdown of women in leadership. In Gambia here, even in parliament, I think we have 5 parliamentarians that are women, something like that, and most of them are nominated. So we need to have people women in leadership positions so that our girls can look up to them. And last but not the least, I mentioned one of the challenges I had was lack of self-confidence. Lack of self-confidence. We have come a long way, but we have a long way to go. But we are definitely on the right path. Looking around the room, I believe there are many others who have a similar story and registered successes in their journey and face similar challenges. And we've had Biram. So I'm glad that I see in this agenda that we have a list of great women, phenomenal women like Jojo, who will be sharing their journey so far as a celebration of their success in STEM. Just last weekend, to kick off International Women's Month, it was heartening to see some organizations such as the Woman Boss and the She Awards celebrating women of this country, including women in STEM. And I see one lady, Miss Kani Job, I think she was a recipient of an award from the Woman Boss. She's going to be one of the speakers. Kani, we are proud of you. As a group, women have made significant gains in STEM, and our impact is being felt greatly in our society. But it has been quite challenging to get the exact statistics on women in STEM because it differs greatly based on region, country, and discipline. However, it is certain that the numbers of women in STEM have grown significantly, steadily, slowly, but surely. According to AAUW, which is the American Association of University Women, women take up 28% of the workforce for STEM worldwide, which is significant if you consider that we were around the 5% to 8% mark in the 70s. But women are making more strides in certain disciplines such as scientific research, where, for instance, some statistics have estimated that 49% of science researchers in Europe are women, compared to 44% in Central Asia, but unfortunately in our region it's below 20%. In disciplines such as engineering and construction, the numbers are much lower. Worldwide, they're in the 15% range in the developed world, and you can imagine in our region it's very much lower. Given the complexity our part of the world, the developing world, is facing, economic growth and improvements in the standard of living here will continue to rely on innovations and technological breakthroughs. Such revolutions can only happen if we get women who constitute 50% of the population to actively participate in STEM. So some of the things that we can do is lobby government through organizations like WiSTEM to adopt strategies that can employ more women in STEM, such as creating learning resources that portray girl-child in STEM, early intervention, encouraging STEM from a very early age. And as I've explained, that really helped me because I was introduced to mathematics at a very, very early age, and it has helped me a lot along my journey. Also, introducing role models at an early age will help these young girls to pursue their dreams in STEM. And lastly, but not the least, investing in teachers. I was having a conversation with Dr. Cora just before the meetings, the discussion started. And one of the things we are saying is that there's a big lack of teachers. I'm not even saying good teachers, just teachers generally. There's a lack of teachers in the STEM subjects of mathematics, science, physics, even for private schools. When my children were going through high school, getting a physics teacher was very, very challenging. And some terms, a lot of students sit without a physics or math teacher. So we need to address that. And I think the Minister of Higher Education is here, and I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to him to probably look at having some kind of arrangement where the graduates from UTG can be made to at least contribute, work for a year or two as a teacher with some incentives, and this will help them before they go to the workforce. I think we have a lot of countries doing that, and we are appealing to the government to look in that direction so that we can have good teachers in our schools. Because if we don't have good teachers in our schools, the children cannot pursue these STEM subjects. As we continue to work towards this, we should all take a moment, all the phenomenal women in this room, take a moment to celebrate yourselves. We can do that by highlighting the women in our community in leadership positions in STEM, like we're going to hear in a few minutes. And this will help change the narrative as women continue to break the glass ceiling. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Madam Aisato. Thank you so much for that inspiring message. We appreciate a lot. At this juncture, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the CEO of the OIC. We are in his home and he's here with us. So we would like everyone to please know that he is with us here. Yes. Please, sir, would you rather sit behind us? Fine. We would also want to acknowledge the presence of our Girls in STEM clubs, that is the USET chapter and the NUSTAT chapter. We also have Charles Jao here with us. We have Mansa Kolibojang also with us. Is there any school that I've not mentioned? Those are the schools, yes. Thank you very much for coming. They have exhibitions for us that we will see at the end, inshallah. So we would like to also acknowledge the presence of Kani, also
in nursery school. So I don't really think I should share a platform with all of these women here. But then I'll try. As Nima rightly said, I'm a medical doctor. I'm a specialist in obstetric and gynecology, and currently I'm the deputy head of the clinical services at Mundu Maternal. So my journey might not be really different from a lot of young women that are sitting in this hall right now. I came from a very humble background. Um, I was raised by a single mother. It was four of us, and then I happened to be the last child. So child Kirby, so everybody tried to spoil me as much as they can. And when I started studying school, I almost did not go to school because the time I was supposed to go to school, my mom was like, it's too much. I already had three people in school and then it's sort of hard. But then I was lucky that I had siblings that were determined so that I can get the education that I needed. So I remember it was my big sister that actually enrolled me in nursery school, and then again, and after nursery school, enrolled me in primary school. I could not really get into the primary school that my other siblings get into because my mom felt it was too expensive. So I went to one of the public primary school, that is Banyulinding Primary School, and then I did my primary education there. And then I had to prove myself to my mom that I was worthy of her money. So I happened to be the best student throughout my primary education, and then through common entrance, I got the best results. So now she had no choice rather to send me to a proper school. So then I went to St. Peter's, and then I was still the good student. And then After St. Peter's, then I went to Newsrat. I did not really choose Newsrat. I was supposed to go to Methodist. And then after Methodist, I went for the interview. Then I felt that I did not fit in the environment and everything. So I chose to go to Newsrat. That was a big mistake. Because the Newsrat class was so competitive. We have, it was 51 of us, and then most of them were guys. There was only 9 ladies in the class. And then, boy, it was crazy. And I remember my first exams, I had the position 23. I was an honest student. And then I ended up having position 23. I went home, I cried the whole day and night, and then I refused to eat. And then I know that now I am in a proper science class. So when I went to Newsrat, I did not really want to do science. I wanted to do arts, and Mr. Bojan was like, "No, you cannot do arts with your results." I'm like, "I want to do arts. It's not by force for me to do science." Then he's like, "No, because we people with your results are usually in our science one classes." And then I said, "I'm not good at maths." And then he's like, "No, you will try." I said, "If I do maths, I usually have headache." He said, "Well, you can manage." So that was it. I was really forced into the science class, and then I did the science, and then after that, I went to university. My initial field that I was interested in was to be a pilot. You know, I have always have big dreams. I wanted to be a pilot, and then after high school, there was no course that offered engineering in this country, so I had to settle for medical school. I went to medical school. I thought it was just the normal education, the routine education that I have been having, but then I realized that it was totally different. That medical school was like a jungle. Most of our lecturers were not Gambians, so it was twice as difficult. That you, most of them were Cubans, so the translation was really difficult. That you don't even know what they were saying most of the time. So those that are going to medical school in the biomedical sciences right now will understand what I'm talking about. So after the medical school, it was tough. It was hard. Um, I was someone that I keep on throughout medical school. I keep on crying and anyway before the exam, during the exam, and after the exams. My friend Awa will usually say, "Dad, what is your problem? Don't go me out." I'm like, huh. Each exam, actually, I'll pack my things and go home and said, "I am done." After each professional exams, we usually have 4. So after the first one, I packed my things and I went home. I told my brother, "I'm done. I don't think I can do medicine." He said, "Okay, we wait for the exams." Fortunately, the results usually come out after 1 or 2 days. When the results come out, I pass. He said, "Well, I think you need to continue." I'm like, "Okay, I'll manage." Then after the holiday, I pack again. I went back. So the second professional exams, I packed again and went home. And then I said, "This time I'm not really going back because I know I have failed." And then after that, okay, I had to go back. So that was it until my final year, which was quite difficult because the exam was just after Ramadan, and then just before the exams we lost someone. My friend lost the husband, so it was kind of very difficult moment for all of us. And then after the medical school, then we went for house job, which is actually they will tell you, uh, you are nobody respect you. You are the lowest doctor, so you will do anything that they order you to do. And house job was difficult. The on calls every 3 days you have to spend in the hospital, and then after house job, then I had to do the medical, become a medical officer. Of course, I went for an interview. I wanted to be an obstetrician when I get to medical school. So because I had a lecturer that was bullying me in Onji, I want to change. I wanted to do pediatrics. So I went for interview and then I choose to do pediatrics. So when we went for the interview, it was 3 ladies and 2 guys. During the interview, so we were asked question, the normal thing, I want to save life, blah blah blah. So so after that, the head of the department then said he's not going to employ ladies because we go for maternity leave. So that was very, very, very unfortunate for all of us. And then they end up not choosing the 3 of us, and then they choose the 2 guys. So I had to go for posting then because I don't want to do on in AFS stage. So that's how I left AFS stage. I went for posting in Bundung. But then before I go, I make sure that the guy that he employed, I dragged the guy with me to go to Bundung. So because I just want to get back at him. So I encouraged the guy that let's go to Bundung. Bundung is nice. It's a nice hospital. It's a new hospital. They don't, I tried to convince him as a lady. So I just drag him along. So that he will be left with one. So after that, then we did the house job. Then because it was very difficult for me to continue my career, because when we get to Bundung, there was nobody to mentor us, to help us develop, because it was just 3 new medical officers that they post in a hospital. So we had to encourage each other, mentor each other, and all that. So I did my primary exams. Fortunately, I decided to register for 2 exams, just in case I fail one. So I registered for the COG, that is the London exams, for the entry exams, and then the West African College of Surgeons, the entry exams as well. So I decided to do the MRCOG first, which was way easier, straightforward, and then I passed that. So I'm like, okay, now even if I fail the West African College of Surgeons, because it's usually very difficult, it's okay, it's not a problem. So fortunately, I was able to pass both. So I wanted to. And then it was another challenge was to where to do the residency. And then there was no residency program in the Gambia. We were actually the first batch